Okay, welcome to this episode of Jacksonville Football Club, the Coaching Chronicles. Delighted today to be joined by Pat Cannon, our Executive Director at the club, and Matt Lacey, who is the Executive Director of Virginia Soccer Association and also the Technical Director at Virginia Development Academy. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
me.
it.
Pat, I'm going to start with you because you obviously met Matt, on the coaching courses that you've done, and you've worked with him before. So I'm going to let you introduce him a little bit, and then we'll get Matt involved.
Yeah, no, Matt, first appreciate you coming on. I met Matt, what was it, 2018, 2019, when we were doing our Academy Directors course through US Soccer. Fantastic course that was put on by US Soccer that we got to travel the world and see a bunch of different things. As you spend a lot of time with people, I think the course was over a year. You get to know different people within the game. One of the cool things about the course was just hearing how different leaders and directors and clubs run their clubs and how, best practices and how you can better our club. So when we're doing this podcast series, I thought it would be great to bring Matt on to just kind of give us an insight of how they do things and how it maybe is the same or maybe differs and explain through different of ways of teaching and ways to run clubs.
Brilliant stuff, Matt. Let's start there if you don't mind. I think we'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts and your take on, modern trends in youth coaching. What do you look for when you're hiring staff? Like, what makes a really good youth coach? Perhaps we could start there if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, probably a good place to kind of start our conversation is kind of give you a little bit of insight on kind of my kind of journey to where I am now, right? Because I think that influences kind of how I look at, I guess, the youth landscape and youth development. So, again, my background was very based in academy football in England. I played at Norwich City. I also played for Crewe Alexander when I was younger. So when I was released from Norwich about 19, 20 as a youth pro, obviously I had kind of that experience of being in an academy environment, and I came here, did college, signed for Richmond Kickers, but unfortunately I got hurt, so I kind of got thrown into coaching very early on. And my uh, I guess my leadership and my philosophy on football has kind of been really based around, making sure that the experience I give to players and our club gives the players, probably not saying that my experience was bad, but, growing up in the 90s in England in an academy was very different than what it looks like now. So, again, making it player centric, making it as a club that we support our coaches to help them understand the bigger picture. It's obviously something that's been really important to me as we push forward. So again, I've been at clubs really where, I would say I've been a builder of clubs. I came in and my first job ever was at Chester United. It was a really small club in Richmond, Virginia. And again, we was able to be part of a team that kind of grew a club from, 15 travel teams to I think it was 40, 50 when I left. And again, I was very young, but I always thought I was leading that chase. And again, when you're younger, you're a little bit naive to everyone else who's helping you at the same time. And then I moved to Northern Virginia, and I was really fortunate to come to a club which kind of was at a point where you couldn't really do anything wrong. It was really go put into practice what I learned in 5 years and put it into practice with VSA. And then, I was just, by the time I met Pat, I built a development academy boys program with another club, Prince William Soccer Club, and we had VDA. So again, a lot of my development being based around building programs. So again, I think it's very similar to how you build a player, and I always kind of put that in the forefront of kind of modern trends. But also, yeah, how we approach the day-to-day operations of the football club is, again, can we develop players that can be successful at the next level? And again, obviously within our clubs, right, we have rec, we have travel. So there's always a player pathway for each player. We want to make that a really enjoyable experience. So I guess when it comes to trends specifically, and we've all been there, and obviously myself and Pat have shared an experience of traveling America, traveling Europe to look at some of the best practices, is that, again, there's context to everything you do. Every player is going to be affected by the environment that you are in. So, for example, we always think about how do we develop players in Northern Virginia. That may look different to how I develop a player in Jacksonville, because obviously the needs of them players are always going to be different. The parents' needs are going to be different. So I would say, yeah, there's trends, but there's also context, right? One thing that we learn at Atletico Bilbao may not work in America, right? But something else may be really, yeah, efficient or proactive to bring into your club culture, because it meets what you need for your players. So very often what we're talking about here is, can we always put modern trends into context of what we're building and the players we're developing? So, I would say really is having a really good grasp on what you're trying to develop and who you're trying to develop.
Just curious because we spent a lot of time together. We got to see an insight of each other's clubs. We all had to do these fancy PowerPoint presentations that gave us an insight of how everybody does things. I'm curious to hear from that course what changes have you made within the club from the maybe just from the experiences in Spain, or maybe just from learning from each other within the course.
Yeah. I mean, look, I know it sounds really basic when I say this, but we want to be a development club, right? And what I mean by that is not a recruitment club. We want to develop our own players. So again, from the earliest age group here, and I'm talking about under 6, we start there. We're thinking about how we're going to create players that can perform in our academy at under 13s in the Eastern Isle with the boys and Eastern Isle with the girls. So again, how we get there, what I would say is, when we traveled across the country, you got to see different methodologies, right? And different ways of doing things. We're really specific on how we develop young players, and I would say, unapologetic about how we do it. So again, obviously there's trends in the game where it says everything should be play, practice, play, or everything should be decision making. I don't personally believe that. Our club doesn't personally believe that everything has to be decision making. It needs to be at the right level, introduced at the right time. So, what did I learn? Well, I went to Manchester United last year, right? And at 9s through 12s, big focus on technique and enjoyment of football, right? So, what does a session look like? Isolated technique, small group decision making, play the game, right? And we're really specific. We train our under 8s through under 12s 3 times a week, an hour and a half, and it's built into them blocks: technique, decision making in 1v1, 2v2, and the game. And again, when we talk about tactics and the bigger concept, we're only really introducing that on game days. And again, that's specific to the level, right, as well. So we have our pre-VDA teams, so they're capable of more from a tactical perspective. And again, I just want to be very clear when I say tactical, I mean building and pressing. We talk about how we build through the opponent, or over or around, and how we disrupt the opponent with pressing. So in them age groups, I'd say I took the most out of the academy director how to be better, because it kind of suits or fits our philosophy that we need to develop our own players. And again, Pat, you being in it, my biggest advice, you've got to focus on yourself constantly, right? There's so much going around in this landscape. In Northern Virginia, just to give some context, we have 5 ECNL clubs and 4 MLS clubs, probably within a 60-mile radius. Now, obviously, I know there's a bigger population, but can people have choices and where to go? We made a decision. Again, when we get a kid at 8, we want them to be here till they're 19. And obviously, we're fortunate we get to play against Pat's team when we come to Jacksonville. I think we had one of our East VDA East come down. We have some really good teams coming through now that make sure that we're set up for long-term success. So everyone is brought into this idea of how we develop young players. There's a specific way, and we're not going to go off that because someone says we shouldn't do that. We're going to stick to what we believe into a club. And again, we've been doing it probably since our academy director course, Pat. And, obviously you've probably seen the development of our younger team just come into your tournament. We've got some really good players coming through. We've had record numbers go into MLS academies with DC United. We've got record numbers of youth national teams on the girls' side. So there's definitely something in that, and just sticking to it, not changing, stick to what we believe in. And again, I say that that it's some magic thing, right? But it's so simple, people make it hard sometimes. So we want to keep it as simple as possible for the coaches and the players to learn in the right phases.
It is difficult, isn't it? And I think you've hit the nail on the head there. And we're very fortunate in Jacksonville that we have leadership right from Pat all the way down that is supporting the coaches to develop the players and follow the curriculums and do things in what we believe is the right way. You're obviously talking exactly the same for your club and your association up there as well, Matt. Let's get into this then. So if the coaches that are listening today, sometimes they feel a pressure, don't they? And we roll there ourselves. Like, we have to try and make ourselves look competent, or we have to make our teams look competent because we want to recruit players and keep players in the program. And maybe we want to win, and parents only think the only value comes in winning, and all these pressures that youth coaches are under. But actually, the leadership of both clubs here is saying the same thing. We're going to back our methodology. We're going to trust our coaches. We're going to deliver things. So our players, when they come to 13, 14, 15, have what they need. Can you talk to those coaches a little bit and maybe empathize with the pressure they might feel, but say why it's so important that they follow the philosophy you're talking about here?
Yeah, again, I mean, obviously, to your point of following the curriculum, the methodology, again, you're trying to develop a player that is specific to your club, right? And again, obviously, there's going to be different players within that, but the way we do it will be different than the way you do it. So, again, I think it's so important that every member of staff that you have is brought into the bigger picture, right? And again, whatever level you fit in at, we always try and say to our coaches, right? You may have the D team, but that job's massive because there's probably going to be two or three players on that team. If you follow the right curriculum, you find the right methodology, it's going to be, in your case, on the boys side, an MLS Next player and an ECNL girls player long term. And again, I'm sure you guys have plenty of stories of players that have moved up. So everyone is part of that picture, not you've got your team, you're on your own. No, 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 you're part of this bigger picture that we're all trying to develop players. So again, in our area, I would say I'm not saying this is 100% right, but the pressure to win because of the eight other clubs surrounding you is immense, right? And you feel that pressure straight away. So how do we try to help the coaches? Again, look, we want to win, right? Football or soccer, it is a winning sport, right? You win and you lose. However, there's a way we're going to win. And again, if you're following through that process, we will back you. As soon as you go off that process, though, it's very hard for us to support you as an individual within our organization. So what we're trying to do is find the right people in each age group to kind of bring out the curriculum, philosophy of the club as we move forward. And again, I think if your methodology and curriculum is right, you're probably going to have a lot of success, at least locally, right? Again, when you talk about regional, national, again, I spent just last summer, we had, I think, 11 teams in the ECNL playoffs, right, between boys and girls out of 12. So I watched so many playoff games. The best team doesn't always win. So we try not to worry about that. Try to worry about making our players develop to our style of play, and so they can be successful moving forward. So we never kind of lose sight of that bigger picture of developing, obviously, the individual within the team construct. And again, just context in our area, there is a high demand to win. So we have to set as many expectations and standards from the start in each age group of what we're trying to achieve. So under nines, we're having serious parent meetings because it's not just the club, the coach, because we need to make sure the parents understand the expectations and standards. Because if they don't, in our area, you're 10 miles away from another club where they can go to. So we really want to make sure that they understand what they're trying to build and what we're working towards. Because again, we are all part of it. And I think probably one of the lessons I've learned over time is, we need to engage with the parents in education and meet them where they're at too. Not always, and I think that probably everyone sitting here has been through this, and probably your coaches as well. It's a cycle, right? And it never ends. So again, I teach one group of parents to support the philosophy and the curriculum and the players, and then, hey, oh, I got to do it again next year. So I think we've got better every year of having their meetings and saying, hey, here's the expectation standards. We're going to go through them every year until you're 19 years old. We're going to meet and we're going to meet and we're going to meet. So yeah, I think that, if coaches can be part of the bigger picture, it's much easier to support them, and it's much easier for them to improve. Because again, you don't want to get in any club, and again, I'm not saying our club, your club, but everyone has them somewhere. People want to be on their own island. It don't help the bigger picture. The bigger picture is be part of developing players to the next level, and normally you probably get some success as a club from that. So yeah, we're I don't know if we're fighting a losing battle, but we're trying all the time to really get everyone to understand what we're trying to develop. And I would say at our club, because again, we have 4 or 5 teams in an age group, right? Tier 1, tier 2, I think we're doing a really good job. We're getting better with tier 3 and 4 of getting them coaches to understand what their role and responsibility is. And again, their methodology and their curriculum is much different than tier 1, tier 2. It's they have to understand that too, that they have a different objective of how they get players to the next level than obviously our top teams, right, which are pushing players to college, youth national team, DC United, etc.
Understandable. Pat, I want to bring you in on that if I can. Obviously, with everything that Matt's talked about here, can you give us your take on that?
No, I think it's refreshing to hear because it's stuff that we've preached day in and day out within our coaching staff, and we have a meeting that we set. I'm sure you do as well, Matt. Every beginning of the year, going over pretty much everything a coach needs to know. We call it the JFC way, right? Because our way is maybe different than Matt's way, than someone else's club's way, but this is our way, and this is how we want our coaches to lead and coach and methodology. And it's funny. We just put that podcast out with Tommy earlier this month, and he talked about the team meetings within the players and the parents. I think it's massively important to set those expectations, to communicate from the beginning of what you're doing and why you're doing it to the parents. I always tell every coach, the more you communicate, the easier the job it is for you, the easier job it is for me. If you want to just do it your way on an island and you exclude the parents, exclude the club, you're going to cause a lot of issues from yourself and for me, which ends up a bigger discussion in the long term. So, for the discussion with the coaches, it's there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of time and effort that's put into how we structure our clubs. There's a reason why we do it at each club. Might be different, ours might be different from geography and player pool than Matt's, but I think there's a lot of similarities between how we structure the methodology. I think Matt, you talked about the simplicity almost of looking of how to run a session. I think there's so many ideas and thoughts nowadays on different things in player development, and I think we've kind of lost the focus of how to develop the basics of players, and I thought that we did practice play for 2 years, and we just switched up this year methodology almost back to kind of how you described yours, Matt. And I think it's one of those, you look back and you see what works, what develops a player, how do we develop the basic tools they need on the technical side. And if we steer too far into the game without developing those basics, then we're certainly losing a lot, and we have to gain a lot when the kids get to U13 and U14. So I think it's just great to hear a lot of similarities from the clubs, and every club has a fellow competitor that they're dealing with that are trying to take their players, and winning obviously cures a lot, but if you're winning the wrong way in the long term, it's not there for the player. So I think when we're in this game, when we're in the roles that we're in it to help develop players. We're not in it to have a record for our club that we're 81-2 this year, but how many players are we putting on to the college level? How many players are we putting into the MLS academies? And how many players are on the rec and lower levels are going to come back next year because they're having fun? I think that's the biggest point, and Tommy talked about it, is the fun component. If we get too far down the line with some of these teams, the kids aren't having fun anymore. There's so many options for them to do in the US with different sports. We're going to lose those kids to the game. And I think that's one of the most important things for us as coaches, is to keep the love of the game for these players. And leading into how do we pick our coaches for next year and the year after? It's those coaches that show that passion in the game, the coaches that you could look out and the kids are loving it and are coming back.
I mean, just obviously talked about kind of structures of session, right? So just kind of give you some insight into our methodology. So that's one of the things that we spent time talking about around the Academy Director course, and then you go visit other clubs. You know, one of the things we tried to do is, okay, well, players in a game, they're always out of their comfort zone, right? So if we run, let's just say run play, practice, play 4 nights of your week when you train, well, they know what to expect, right? So we went away from, I guess, in a traditional approach in terms of the microcycle of the week. We went into, okay, well, what helps players improve? And we looked at our style of play. Said, okay, well, you need to be good at dominating 1v1. So we need lots of activities like that. We want to be a possession and pressing club. So we need possession and pressing, and then obviously the big element of transition and restart. So we dedicate 2 nights at VDA on a Monday, Tuesday with the girls and boys where they're doing stations. So one, they're working with every coach within the club, and they never know what to expect on them nights, right? And they've been, and to be fair, I would love to take credit for it, but it was I was talking to my friend who worked at Manchester United. He's like, well, you know, we do station work, and I was like, let's try that. So we'll try a repetition of like basic actions. And again, I will say at VDA, when you get to 13, there's not much isolated technique going on, right? Most of them kids have mastered it. So again, younger age groups we're focusing on, but once we get there, it's a heavy focus on obviously decision making and understanding roles and responsibilities within the game. Obviously, higher the age group, the more intense. But we do them on Mondays and Tuesdays, and we've probably been doing that for 3 years. Our results have got much better, like just in general. And then Wednesday, Thursday, we dedicate it to a traditional team approach. Again, topic based on a long-term periodization cycle on attacking and defending, and again, our game model and our phases. So, but then Mondays and Tuesdays have been great. One, you get to work with every player as a director, and you know, so your directors leading the program is really important. They're invested in everyone. But also we get to really kind of overload them in the football actions that we want to improve on again, and we coach technique in it, but it's coached within, you know, more small-sided activities. So that's probably the biggest thing we've done differently in the last 3 years, and you know that started to run throughout every part of the club. Like on a Monday, our pre-VDA teams are low because we have 2 locations in East and West. They all come together on a Monday and they do that. They do station work. And then on a Tuesday, our partner clubs, they're doing that throughout the club. So we've seen a lot of benefit from just changing up the way we teach football, and not being too, I guess, like held on to. It has to be team always. Again, they're in their team, but they're working within these stations, which are changing up constantly throughout a night. And the players have really enjoyed it too. And obviously, there's an element of competition because they're a little bit smaller, faster, more intense. So the kids really enjoy that. So that's probably the biggest, I would say, methodology change that we've done in the last 3 years. I think we've seen good benefit from as a program.
It's genius, Matt, and it you know, I mean, it's rooted so much in everything we know empirically, academically about teaching, about coaching. Now, I was fortunate, mate, to work with Dick Bate when Dick came to Cardiff City, right, as academy manager. God rest him, amazing man, and he was there for 2 years, and he had this same idea about carousel practices and developing practice. He come from the FA, obviously, as a lead coach, educated at the FA. But what he did every 6 weeks was he had a game for all the players aged between 14, I think it was 13 and 15, based on height, based on weight, based on their maturation status, based on their position, where an under 15 player who was a late maturer could play with the under 13s. And you took away all the elements of bigger, faster, stronger. And just for 90 minutes in a training night or training day for us, you had a player who didn't have any of those issues anymore. They could just concentrate on what they were doing. Very similar to what you're saying there about looping, the under 13 left wingers with the under 15 left wingers. What an under 16 player can teach an under 12 about movement and put it in a way that a kid understands. What a massive benefit. So again, mate, really great ideas, really, really rooted in what I would consider to be, development principles from the Football League and the Premier League. So really exciting stuff.
This is just your
Go
coaches,
ahead.
Dave. This is just your coaches, right? This isn't
This
gone
is
out
just
to anyone.
internally for our
Uh,
company. Yeah,
I
just
just So just within that structure, our 11s and 12s, when they come in, they get put in stations differently each week. Best players, middle players, lower level players. That's one week, right? Then another week we'll do it based on size. And then other weeks we'll do it based on team. So we're constantly obviously working through giving everyone the opportunity to be successful. Again, if it's done on size, where you at with your decision making, right? When it's done on just where it is right now, again, what's your mentality if you're a little bit bigger or if you're a little bit smaller. And then with the VDA groups, what we're doing is we within the station nights, the best girls, and when I say best girls, the youth national team level girls or potential track, 2 or 3 of them will train in with the boys per age group. So we do that. And then on the boys' side, the best players train up. But also on the flip side, physically developing players, we will sometimes have them train down in an age as well within it. And they don't really know what's going on, right? Because it's 13s through 15, 16s through 19. So, and again, sometimes we're just doing it. It's planned, but they don't know it's planned. They're like, hey, you're going over there. You go over there. So again, we try to think through, yeah, challenging as many players within the environment as well, which again, obviously, you mentioned obviously Dick Bake there, but again, I think that just different environments constantly changing is so powerful for players. So we've seen a big benefit from that.
Well, I'm conscious of your time, man. I know you're super busy, but I want to carry this on because it's such great stuff. Along the lines of what you've said there, you've talked about a lot of development principles. You've been really fantastic sharing insights with how you do it, obviously at the club as well. Do you have any advice for the youth soccer coach working in the States now, working in the pay to play model, working with all the pressures we've talked about? Like, what would you say to them? You know, they're listening to us today, all the coaches from our club, obviously, on this podcast. But what would you say to them, Matt, in terms of like how they can enjoy their coaching more, how they can feel less pressure, how they can show up better for their players, how they can just do a great job? Because all of our staff want to do a great job, but they feel pulled and pushed in different directions. We all know what it's like. What advice would you give them, mate?
I kind of like put them into some categories, right? Your coaches, right? So if you got young up and coming coaches, you go, I guess my advice would be different to them then. Obviously, your experienced coaches have been in longer. And again, obviously, I'm 39 now, right? So I've been leading this club since I was 28, 29. So again, I've had to think about that constantly, how I help develop people who are a lot much older than me and now getting to middle age who people are much younger than me. So with younger people, I'd say, look, you just got to be all in, right? So again, if there's top coaches, time is not important in the sense of take as much time as you can to be around them people. So again, if that means sacrificing going out, that means sacrificing staying on the field an extra hour and a half, you got to do that. You can, and that means missing a weekend to go sit on the bench as a volunteer to pick up cones for your ECNL coach or your MLS next. I would 100% do that. The more you're around better people, the quicker you'll improve, and the more you get to see them solve problems. I mean, we played against one of your teams the other week, under 17 girls, and again, you had 2, 3 coaches on the sideline at half time. You've got the tactics board out. Just listening in, right, to them conversations straight away will give you a better perspective of it. So if you're younger, spend as much time as you can getting around better people. Again, dedicate yourself to obviously external education, US soccer. Obviously, there's so many other UEFA, whatever. But really, that internal education within the club is way more important than probably what you're going to learn in licensing. I don't mean there's licensing being great. I'm a big supporter of what US soccer have done over here. So, but what you're going to learn from someone who's done it is way more powerful. I'd say with the experienced coaches, again, and this is just from a leadership perspective, is that again you can always grow and improve. So there's no end point to this journey. So again, I'm getting older, and we just brought in a new girls director, and he's so committed. He's nuts, like this amount of emails he sends, and the attention to detail. I'm like, oh, I've got better this year. Like working with him, it's great, right? And I didn't think I would do that. I'm going, I've really enjoyed just someone who wants to be the best for themselves. Really raised me up. So I'd say when you're an experienced coach is not forgetting how you got there, right? And again, it doesn't matter what level you coach. And one of the big things I've learned over time, and one of the experience I've had over the last 3 years, I've coached DC United's under 23s, and because I've done that, obviously I've worked with better players, and I've been able to probably bring out my methodology a little bit more. But what I did learn the most out of anything, it's just people and children in front of you. So it doesn't matter what level you're coaching, be as enthusiastic to learning for them players as you would if you coach the top team, or vice versa, or whether you're an MLS coach or you're a NWSL coach, a national team coach. It's all just people trying to improve and get better. So again, if you're going to say to players, like, my job is to help you improve, I better be doing that every day. So again, I think when you get older and more experienced, you need to continue to live that for the players, because that enthusiasm of learning, and one of my favorite quotes that we use now from Aaron Breener, actually was in Florida State when they won a national title as the assistant coach. He always says to me, he says, how can we help the players? And I do think when you talk about how can you improve, you've got to improve yourself, right? That's number one. How can we help the players? But any problem, we always try and solve it with how can we help the players? And it's a great little one when you're working with staff, because it's like, especially as directors, right? Someone's coaching a game and you're like, you need to do this, you need to do that, and they're losing, they're turning around, going, well, we always say, how can you help the players? And that's been a big change for me in the last 18 months. So I would take that philosophy, which I think has been really powerful. Again, it's not mine. We've kind of stolen it a little bit into my own development. Again, if I'm going to help the players, I've got to be the very, very best. And, people will say, what's the why? Why do you do it? I personally believe you should do anything because you want to be the best. Like, I'm really big on that. Like, I'm not saying as if I want to help the players. Great, I want to help the players. I want to be the best I can be, right? So if I'm going to do that, that's naturally going to help everyone around me. So again, my biggest advice, put the time in. And as you get older, continue to put the time in, maybe in a different way. Who you surround yourself with, who you learn from. And again, just the philosophy of how can you help the players. If you're really going to be in it for the right reason, I know, Pat, with your club, that's big for you, is making sure you get the right people. Is, again, you've got to get better. You've got to constantly improve and evolve. And again, I think the best way to do that is being around good people and setting up that network. And again, the JFC, I've seen the JFC way when you bring all the coaches in. I mean, there's nothing better than that. Like just sitting in a room. We do it once a month with each clubs, right? VSA do a coaching ed. We do once a month with VDA staff. And honestly, obviously VDA is a little bit smaller because it's just our elite teams. But I learn more just sitting there listening to someone present something on building out from the back, or something on, how they've helped an individual develop of running in behind. And again, I think it's something that never changes, which is quite exciting about what we do, right? Is that, again, if we're here to help the players and we're here to help human beings in front of us, I think it becomes very easy to get better. I think when you think about all the other things, parents, winning games, you kind of get dragged away from what it's all about. So probably my best advice there. If there is any advice in there, I'm not sure.
I'm sure there is, mate. And look, I want to bring Pat in a second, but like just your enthusiasm, Matt, you're a football man. It's clear. Like even just talking to us here, you can see like you're up out your chair. Like this matters to you, and this is, I think, the best thing you can show people is like we are fortunate enough to work in an industry where every day things change and there's new things, and you can stay current, and you've got to want to do that, haven't you? You've got to watch Premier League games, you
Correct.
watch other games. You've got to be talking football, and we don't get to talk football very often, do we? Because we're so busy actually doing it. That you're right. When those opportunities come along, you got to grab them. But yeah, can't thank you enough, mate, because it's like an iPhone charger just listening to you. So it's great. Pat, I want to bring you in as well, based on everything we've said here. So
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about coaches. The best coaches that we've had come to the club are the ones that don't just show up right before the session, put their session together and leave. Whether it's a beginner coach, like you said, Matt, that to fully engulf yourself into the club and different coaches, but even the more experienced coaches, I some of the most successful coaches that we've had, even the ones, coaching our top level teams, are the ones that are sticking around the next game, right? To sit in and listen to the next coach, to come early and pick each other's brain with football talk. You don't get to a higher level just by putting in half the work, and as a coach, it's one, yeah, obviously preparation that you have for your sessions and your games, but two, it's like every club has fantastic people around you. And if you don't spend the time to learn from the people around you, you're missing out big time. So, you talk about advice, and Matt, you said it for the beginning coach to engulf yourself. I mean, I would even say for someone like me and like you, Matt, like I thoroughly enjoy going to different games and listening to coaches talk at halftime, and look at the way, we have our principles and how we want to play, but every coach obviously does things a little bit different. And to ask coaches, hey, why did you play this way? Certainly, why were you building out the back this way? Constantly learning. And when we start to just stay in our lane and not progress, people are gonna come flying past you. And I see it consistently with coaches that just get content with where they're at, the role of they have within the club, the team that they coach, and then you also see the ones that want to continue to progress. And I think that is the best advice, to engulf yourself wherever you're at in this country, whatever club that you're at, especially with us. Go sit on a director's bench, go sit on a higher levels coach bench. If you're a higher level, go pick a coach that you can look across and see that they're doing things the right way, and take some things from them, because all it is, Matt talked about the stations that he picked up from a coach of Man United. That's the game, right? It's us picking up little things from different clubs, from different people, and taking the things that you think would work right within either your environment of your team, or for myself within the club, and implementing them, and then taking your club again to the next level, or your team to the next level, or the players on your team to the next level, to push them into, whether it's the team above you or progressing into a different realm of college or national team.
Can I just add a point to that, Pat?
Yeah.
Because you made a good point there, right, in terms of preparation, right? So one of the things I'm coaching two teams again, which again, I've got so many other things going on in terms of like VSA, VDA. I work with, as executives, I work with a county. Every year I try and set a goal, right? So this year, and I've been really fortunate. I've got two really good teams, under 17s, under 19s, but I've set a goal that I will not miss a practice session. Like in terms of like writing it, like I'll go on the computer, I do it, drawing a picture, I'm writing down, it's basically a page long. I'm preparing who goes where in each activity. So never any player doesn't feel left out. They feel like they have a part. I've stuck to that like glue. Like I've got every session, and again, you should do that 100%. But in my job, I got so many excuses not to do it. I could give you an every day around 4 o'clock. We're gonna feel at 6:30. I'm in my office thinking, tell you what, I'm gonna struggle to spend 30 minutes to an hour doing this, and I've not missed one. And again, when I start thinking about I'm gonna miss one, I go, we might lose at the weekend. It's because of that session plan. And I've made such a big deal at preparation, because we talked to the players. The same with video. I'm not going to miss a video session this week, so I'm clipping two teams with the little time that I have. But it's such a small, just setting such a simple goal. Every session I'm gonna have a plan. I'm gonna learn something new every year. That's helped me this year because I've got a million not to do it.
And I'll tell you this: it's in our roles. I'm not coaching a team this year, and yeah, I don't know how the hell you're coaching too, but it is so easy because we have a base of sessions and things that we could just go to and go out and run a session real quick. It's so easy to do it. But I honestly think that the players, they know when a coach is prepared, and they want to know when a coach is not prepared. If you're prepared, your session is to a point, to a T. You know exactly what's going on. You know which players. The players know that, and I think you get more out of the players because they know you put the time in. They're going to put the effort into the session. If you're going in and winging it, the players know it, and I think you get a half-ass session from the players as well. And then leading into the games, everything that you do from the week leads into the games. So if you have a couple poor sessions during the week, it's going to lead to a poor game in the weekend. So I would stress that from the coaches, guys. Take 30 minutes, take an hour, depending on how many teams you have. Make sure your session is planned out exactly how you want it. And Matt, we just did a video before this, kind of going through our curriculum with our 9s through 12s. we provide the sessions for them, provide everything. It's there. Just take the time to make it appropriate for your team, knowing which players are going to show up, so we know exactly what you're doing for each session. It makes a massive difference, I think, in the player's performance.
That's
Agreed.
insight again, Matt, and Pat. Also, there is a difference, isn't it? There is a difference when you feel prepared. If you've never done it, set yourself a little challenge, like you said. Matt's been doing it all year. If you can do it, for 2 weeks, 6 sessions, can you make sure that you plan and prepare and write something down and have a session plan for each one and see if you feel the difference in terms of how it flows and how you come across and the confidence you gain from that as well. Because I think that's again great insight from both Pat and Matt. I want to come to both of you with a kind of sign off message in a second. I'll give you a second to think about that. But just to encourage everybody to engage with the coach education program in the club, you can send me an email, dgoff@jfcsoccer.com. We have a coach mentoring program everybody's entitled to be involved with. We are running monthly workshops and podcasts like this for you to listen to on the website and under the coach's corner. And in future, in the next 6 weeks, we'll also see the first Zoom calls that you can come on completely free. Just log in, as Matt has alluded to there. We'll put topics on. We'll put we'll put some examples up on the screen, and we'll just talk through for 20 minutes, just a quick hit, and you can be part of that as well. So keep an eye on the website for those things, and please engage, because the more you do, the more you're going to pick up, the more you're going to feel more confident, and the better you're going to show up for the players. As Matt said, what are we going to do for the players? So I love that as well. I'll come to you first, Pat, and then I'll end with Matt. Sign off in any which way you like, mate. There's a lot of stuff we've covered today. What would you say to kind of sign off this episode, Pat?
No, obviously a lot of stuff covered, and Matt, very much appreciative of you coming on. A lot of great insight into you and your club, and there's a reason why I invited you on here. Definitely tons of respect on how you run your club, and I thought it would be great for our coaches to hear that piece. I'm sure they're sick of hearing from me and Goffey all the time, so it's great to hear from someone else doing things the right way. Yeah, just to sign off, I think we talk about all the different pressures and different things as a coach. I had advice once when I was a player, probably like U13, and I try to stick with it. And he just said, simplicity is genius. We can overcomplicate things with everything we do in life, with whether it's as a player, as a coach. Keep it simple, right? Make sure we're doing things the right way. But simplicity is genius. Not getting too bogged down in the weeds when we're trying to do our sessions. Keep it simple, keep it concise, and I guarantee you things will be much better for you.
Fantastic, Matt. Over to you. Thanks so much for your time. You sign off in any way you want, mate.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to just use a quick story. I'll be really quick here. So when I came to VSA VDA, I was the one full-time staff member. So over, the last 10 years, we have, 25 plus full-time staff members and, 50 volunteer coaches. So probably about 5 years ago, I realized I was leading people, right? Wow, I've got this responsibility. You should have that with your teams and your parents. You are leading people, and you have a responsibility to educate them on their pathway. So, my biggest thing is don't forget how important it is that you are leading your players, and they have a ecosystem around them that you need to lead too. So again, you can just come in and coach, but you're probably not going to be that successful if you don't lead the performance environment. Again, I think US Soccer do a great job with the tasks on there, but leading the parents, leading the performance environment, and leading people, you'll probably have a lot of success if you can kind of just grasp that, because again, you'll hit all the standards and expectations that we've talked about tonight in terms of meetings, in terms of preparation, in terms of video, et cetera, et cetera. I could go on the list. So again, I think just taking that look in the mirror, going, am I leading people? Am I leading the parents? Am I leading the players? If you can look in the mirror and go, what am I failing at and what am I doing well at? Probably can really start to push your players to the next level. So that's my message.
Brilliant. Thanks, man. What a great task to finish with. Look in the mirror and say, what can I do better? What am I failing on? And get after it and attack that as well. Fantastic. So much insight, great advice. Another fantastic episode of the JFC Coaches Chronicles. This is a completely free podcast for all of the staff at the club and coaches at the club. We want you to engage with it. send us feedback. If you want to WhatsApp me a voice note or ask for, you know, us to cover something in the future, please do. We're very open to leading the content down whichever way you guys think is fit. But again, another offering from the club to try and inspire and help everybody working at Jacksonville. So thank you, Matt. Thank you, Pat, for your time. Fantastic episode, and we'll see everybody again next month.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, man.